Cam Reddish was once a name that once sparked so much excitement, but now the name Cam Reddish sparks mostly disappointment and confusion. Because if you had asked someone back in 2018 who's next up in the NBA, Cam Reddish was gonna be on that list. He was smooth, long, and athletic. He could shoot, handle the ball, defend multiple positions, and had all the tools to become a franchise-altering talent. A 6'8" wing who moved like a guard? That's the kind of player an NBA GM dreams about. Back in the day, he was called the most talented player in his class. But fast forward to today, Cam has been off an NBA roster for months and might have already played his last game in an NBA uniform. It wasn't injuries, it wasn't age, it wasn't even drama. He just didn't produce. And now we're all left wondering, how bad is Cam Reddish actually? Was the hype just that? Hype? Was he doomed from the start? Or is this another case of a player with potential who simply landed in all the wrong situations? To answer that, we need to go all the way back. Before the NBA, before Duke, before the next Paul George comparisons. This is the full story of Cam Reddish, and why one of the most promising prospects of his class still can't seem to ever find a home in the NBA. Before the headlines, before the mock drafts, before the questions about his motor and consistency ever existed, Cam Reddish was simply a walking bucket. He started at Westtown School in Pennsylvania, the same program that produced NBA big man Mo Bamba. But even with elite talent around him, Cam stood out, not just because of the stats, but because of how effortlessly he played the game. At 6'8" with guard skills, he could glide into a pull-up three, drop a no-look pass in transition, or swat a shot into the bleachers like it was second nature. By the time he was a senior, Cam was ranked as the third best player in the nation, behind only Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett. But many people in that 2018 recruiting class thought Cam was the best player in the class. Listen to what Naz Reid had to say about it.
To this day, I think the best player in that class was Cam Reddish, hands down.
Yo, talk about that for a second. Bro, that has been a well-known thing around the league and around social media that people in your class have said that.
Yeah,
what was so different?
Just the way he scored the ball. It was too pure. Easy. It was just I'm a bucket. That's just what he was.
Anthony Edwards even said that Cam was the toughest player he ever had to guard.
Who the hardest person you had to guard?
Be honest, man. Could be when you're freshman.
Cam Reddish. I told you, everybody gonna say.
In his senior year, he averaged 23.8 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 3.1 assists per game. And when he joined the AAU circuit with Team Final, he put on a show at the Peach Jam, dropping 44 points in one game, hitting 9 threes, and finishing coast to coast with Euro steps that made him look like a young T-Mac. He had the best shooting stroke, the most polished handle, and arguably the most NBA-ready body. There was a certain ease to his game, a fluidity that made everything look too easy. But that's where the first red flag quietly crept in. While some players played with fire, Cam was ice, cool demeanor, never rushed, never rattled, but sometimes that cool turned into passive, that confidence turned into disengagement. Scouts couldn't tell if he was pacing himself or if he just didn't care. But still, the upside was impossible to ignore. He was named a McDonald's All-American, selected for the Jordan Brand Classic, and won gold with USA Basketball at the FIBA U19 World Cup. College coaches were salivating, and in the summer of 2017, Cam made it official. He committed to Duke. Joining forces with Zion and RJ, this was supposed to be the most dominant freshman trio in college basketball history. And Cam Reddish, he was supposed to be the ultimate X Factor. But college would be where the cracks started to show. Before we jump back into the video, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. You ever try falling asleep and it still looks like noon outside? Yeah, same here. As a content creator, my schedule's all over the place, and getting deep quality sleep in the middle of the day used to be nearly impossible. That is, until I found the Manta Pro sleep mask. This isn't just a regular sleep mask. The Manta Pro is fully adjustable, puts zero pressure on your eyes, and gives you 100% blackout even in broad daylight. It's like someone flipped the world off, and my brain finally gets the signal it's time to rest. Now that summer's coming, longer days, brighter nights, having control over your sleep environment isn't just helpful, it's essential. So if you're ready for better sleep, head to the link in our description and use code HoopDungeon for 10% off your order, because better sleep equals better everything. Cam Reddish walked into Duke with the weight of expectation, not just as a 5-star recruit, but as part of a once-in-a-generation freshman class. The Blue Devils had just assembled the basketball version of the Avengers, bringing in the top 3 recruits in the entire class on one college basketball team. And on paper, it was terrifying. Cam was supposed to be the perfect complement. The guy who could hit shots off the catch, create off the dribble when needed, and lock down multiple positions on defense. He had the highest ceiling of the 3, some scouts argued. He could shoot like a guard, move like a wing, and defend like a forward. But then, the games started, and very quickly it became clear. Cam was going to be the third option, not by design, but by nature. Zion was the most unstoppable force attacking the rim we've seen in college in a very long time. RJ was a relentless downhill driver who can get to his spots and score at will. And Cam, he was there, passive, quiet, still skilled, still dangerous in flashes, but way too often he disappeared for long stretches. He looked like a brand new Ferrari still parked in the garage. On the season, he averaged 13.5 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 1.9 assists per game. Not terrible by any means, especially on a loaded team, but the shooting? Just 35% from the field and 33% from 3. For a guy built as a sharpshooter, it was underwhelming, especially considering the wide-open looks he was getting with Zion and RJ drawing all the attention. And it wasn't just the numbers, it was the vibe. He never really looked comfortable. He didn't impose his will on games. He had some clutch moments, like the game winner against Florida State, but for every spark, there were 3 more games where he'd shoot something like 2 for 11 and never find his rhythm. Coaches blamed the fit. Fans said he was deferring too much. Analysts said Duke's spacing didn't allow him to thrive. And maybe that's true, but the whispers were starting. Is Cam Reddish really that guy? Or did the scouting world fall in love with the idea of Cam Reddish? Regardless, the upside still had teams intrigued. Because if this was Cam's floor, and he still looked like a switchable 6'8" wing who could knock down tough jumpers and guard all over the floor, then the ceiling had to be sky high. And so, after just 1 season at Duke, Cam declared for the NBA draft. He was still projected as a lottery pick, and was seen as one of the ultimate swing-for-the-fence prospects. A guy who maybe didn't show his best basketball in college, but was a high-risk, high-reward prospect who had the intangibles to be a great NBA player. So come draft night, the Atlanta Hawks took Cam with the 10th overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. And honestly, it still felt like a steal. A lot of scouts had Cam as a top 5 talent in terms of potential. Getting him at 10, that was house money. The Hawks already had Trae Young, and they were building a fun, young core. Cam was supposed to be their long, switchable 3-and-D wing who could evolve into a secondary shot creator. He had all the tools, he just needed time. And early on, he got that time. Cam played 58 games his rookie year, starting 34 of them. He averaged 10.5 points, 3.7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and showed some real defensive potential. There were some flashes where he dropped 20 plus and lock up on the other end, but they were surrounded by shooting slumps and long quiet stretches. That rookie year, he shot just 38.4% from the field and 33% from deep. But the Hawks weren't panicking. He was just a teenager, and heading into year 2, expectations were higher, and so were the stakes. In Cam's second season, during the 2020-21 season, Atlanta was suddenly good, like Eastern Conference Finals good, but Cam, he was injured. A nagging Achilles injury kept him sidelined from February until just about the very end of that playoff run. but Cam would make a heroic comeback and make it to play in the ECF against the Bucks. In Game 6, with Atlanta's season on the line, Cam dropped 21 points on 6 of 7 shooting from 3. His defense was fantastic. He looked locked in, energized, confident. It was arguably the best game of his career, and it left fans wondering, is this the real Cam Reddish? But instead of building off that momentum, the 2021-22 season brought more inconsistency. He had some scoring outbursts, but he wasn't clicking with the team. The Hawks were underperforming, and Cam wanted out. He wanted a bigger role, more responsibility. So just halfway through the season, he was traded to the New York Knicks. The Knicks believed they were buying low on a breakout star. Reddish was still only 22. He had size, he had shot creation, he had potential. And New York gave up a first-round pick to get him, which isn't nothing. But right away there was a problem. Tom Thibodeau didn't play him. Reddish arrived in January 2022 and sat on the bench for most of his first 2 months. He played sporadically but never found a rhythm, never got real minutes, and often looked unsure of what his role even was. It wasn't that he was bad, it was that he wasn't trusted. Tibbs is a coach who demands effort, discipline, and consistency. And Cam? Well, those were the very things scouts were questioning. To his credit, when Cam did play, he showed flashes. He had a couple of nice games during the 2022-23 season, including a 26-point outing against the Thunder. But even then, he was often pulled after a bad rotation or missed defensive assignment. He couldn't beat Tibbs over. And by February 2023, the Knicks had given up on him. They sent Cam to Portland as part of the Josh Hart trade. It was a move that basically told the world, we're done trying to figure this guy out. Portland was supposed to be a soft landing. They were in a weird place as a team straddling the line between rebuilding and competing. They needed wings, they needed scorers. Cam had a real chance to start fresh, and for a little while, it worked. He averaged 11 points per game in 20 starts for the Blazers. His minutes jumped, his confidence looked higher. He even played decent defense and shot around 44% from the field, which was a major improvement from his time with the Knicks. But the truth was, Portland didn't see him as a long-term fit. They were trying to clear minutes for their younger core, especially after trading Damian Lillard and pivoting to full rebuild mode when they were tanking like crazy and ended up getting scoot that summer in the draft. So by the summer of 2023, Cam was back on the market, which brings us to what many thought might be his last real shot. Cam would sign with the Lakers that summer, and it felt like the perfect opportunity. A championship contender, a veteran locker room, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Darvin Ham, plenty of structure and minutes to earn. And early on, he actually looked solid. He carved out his starting role for parts of the season, starting 26 of his 48 games played. He played active defense, hit some timely threes, and even won praise from LeBron himself, who said Cam was playing with confidence and making the most of his moment. But like clockwork, it didn't last. His shooting regressed, dipping below 30% from 3, and he struggled with consistency on both ends. The Lakers, dealing with their own ups and downs, tightened the rotation in pursuit of a playoff push. Reddish's minutes began to dwindle. A few minor injuries, a sore groin, then a sprained ankle, kept him out for stretches and disrupted his rhythm. By the playoffs, he was completely out of the rotation. Still, the Lakers brought him back for the 2024-25 season, hoping another offseason of development would bring results. But instead, it was more of the same. His confidence wavered, his offense disappeared, and despite flashes of defensive activity, the production just wasn't there. He finished the 2024-25 season averaging just 5.4 points per game on 38% shooting, and after failing to crack the playoff rotation, the Lakers finally cut him on March 27th of 2025. Not because of a scandal, not because of injuries, just underperformance. For a guy who once looked like the next Paul George, that's hard to believe. So where is Cam Reddish now? Well, as of June 2025, Cam Reddish is a 25-year-old free agent. Not injured, not retired, just unsigned to an NBA roster, and will most likely be heading to play overseas. And while that might sound shocking to some, for NBA front offices, it's just reality. After 6 years in the league, 4 teams, and a career average of 9 points per game, Cam is now in that weird limbo, too young to be called a bust and still technically developing, but with enough film and enough chances that teams feel like they've seen the full picture. And the picture hasn't changed much since college. The flashes are still there, the tools are still there, the jumper sometimes goes in, the defense sometimes pops, but the consistency still missing. The urgency, very much still in question. And to me, it seems like the NBA has moved on. Think about this. Players from Cam's draft class like Zion and Ja are still stars. Others have become all-stars like Darius Garland and Tyler Hero. And so many have carved out real roles like Jordan Poole, Ty Jerome, and even a second-rounder like Nick Claxton. And yet Cam, who was the 10th overall pick and the guy with arguably the highest ceiling of anyone outside the top 3, is currently not on a roster. That's not just a fall from grace, that's a warning sign. Because in today's NBA, teams don't have the patience to wait and see forever. If you're not producing by year 3 or 4, you're replaceable. And in Cam's case, we're talking year 6 and still no identity. No standout skill, no niche carved out. There's still hope he catches on somewhere. Maybe a rebuilding team gives him a shot. Maybe he heads overseas like many others before him. Maybe he has a comeback arc in store like Andrew Wiggins. But today, Cam Reddish's NBA career is on life support. And that brings us back to the question, how bad is Cam Reddish actually? The truth is, he's not bad. He's just not reliable. He's not a locker room issue. He's not a drama magnet. But he's not a consistent shooter, creator, or defender either. He's the definition of a tools guy, and the NBA is full of those. And unless he reinvents himself soon, whether that's as a true 3-and-D role player, a defensive stopper, or a specialist of any kind, he might go down as one of the most disappointing prospects of the last decade, considering the type of hype he had back in high school and trio formed with Zion and RJ. And it's not necessarily because he failed, it's because he never figured out how to succeed in carving a long-lasting role. Many joke around and say he's the best 1v1 player in the NBA, but as we know, the game is played 5v5, and if you aren't going to be a go-to scorer that can give you 20 to 25 points a game, you have to stand out in other ways, like TJ McConnell or Alex Caruso have as high-impact role players on the 2 teams in the 2025 NBA Finals. And unfortunately, Cam has yet and maybe never found that role to give him a long-lasting NBA career. But now I want to hear from you. Were you a Cam Reddish believer? Did you buy into the hype, the smooth jumper, the effortless handle, the Paul George comparisons? Or did you see the red flags early and call it for what it was? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know if you ever thought Cam Reddish would be a star in this league, or if you saw his fall coming from the start. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dive NBA stories, and turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upload. We'll see you in the next one.